Welcome everybody. Today is Saturday the 6th of February 2021 and today is part 3 of 4 of our free webinar series on COVID-19 natural solutions. Of course, this webinar series is by the College of Medicine and Healing Arts in partnership with the National Incubation Center, Pakistan. Here are contact details. And I'd like to hand over to Mr. Parvez Abbasi Sahab, a director at the National Incubation Center, Islamabad, Pakistan, to introduce you all to today's session and to start us off. Parvez Abbasi Sahab, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and inshallah, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum to all of the participants and a warm welcome to today's session. Today, some of you who have joined us in previous sessions would be aware that today is the third session in a 4-part series. Today we'll be covering lifestyle and personal care. Before we get into the session with Hakim Salim, just to give you a little bit of a background and reminder about the National Incubation Center. The National Incubation Center is a public-private partnership working with the Ministry of IT and Telecom, Government of Pakistan. The idea is that we can work with young people, predominantly using technologies to help them build sustainable businesses, which impact across health, education, agriculture, and various other sectors across Pakistan, and hopefully abroad as well. We're delighted to team up with the College of Medicine and Healing Arts and Hakim Salim. COVID has had an impact in 2020 across many people across all countries, I think, and across all social economic classes as well. All of us have lost loved ones. We have also lost jobs in many cases. We've also lost a lot of income. But more importantly, a lot of people have also lost health and mental stability and peace of mind as well. So hopefully going through these kind of programs would help us to build an immune system which will help to defend and protect ourselves. By no means are we advocating doing only this. We encourage people to wear a mask, to socially distance themselves, to wash their hands and sanitize. These are all common senses. But beyond that, what else can we do to protect our family? So I'm really honored and privileged to introduce Hakim Salim. Hakim Salim represents the College of Medicine and Healing Arts. He's also a director at the MohsinHealth clinic, providing professional training worldwide on traditional medicine practices incorporating modern knowledge and skills. I've had the privilege to host Hakim Salim for a day while he was visiting Pakistan. And I hope that through some of the work that we're going to be doing here, we'll have a greater impact based on the work that is being done by Hakim Salim over the last few decades. So without further ado, Salim Saab, welcome to today's session, and thank you very much for your time.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. Thank you very much, Parvez Abbasi Sahab, for your very kind words and introduction. Inshallah, today we have a couple of changes to the program. One is that inshallah we're going to allow far more time for the questions and answers, almost half. So for those people who've been joining us regularly, that will be a little difference. And obviously those newcomers who've joined us today, inshallah, they will have more opportunity. Just as a reminder, really, that next week we're going to have a break from this webinar. So it will be a week later for those of people who are listening and wish to join and share with their friends and family. So inshallah, today's session is going to be mostly on lifestyle. But before we go to the lifestyle that can build our immunity and can help us to stay stronger, let us look at today's lifestyle. Some people call it postmodern lifestyle. After the Industrial Revolution came modernity, and now some people describe the time we're living in as postmodern lifestyle. So here are really some of the glimpses. Of course, the dream, what is known as the American dream, and it seems that some of the world's significant population is attracted towards that dream. Here is some other fruits of our contemporary lifestyle. Again, in particular, our colleagues at Islamabad, I know that, mashallah, you're trying to bring valuable technologies to promote sustainable development, but especially for countries like Pakistan, I think we need to be aware that what are appropriate technologies as we develop, because technology by definition is not necessarily useful or helpful both to us and our environment and our future. So I thought we just share some of the postmodern few pictures of, you know, the lifestyle here and in America for many, many people. Here is another glimpse of, you know, what's happening. We were supposed to get the computers and have paperless offices, but trees are still being cut down in large numbers. Then comes along this COVID, and really, in my view, COVID is tip of the iceberg, unfortunately. It's presented as something completely new, but in reality, our way of life and our health status showed really that people who are unfortunately dying in large numbers are those who have already pre-existing conditions. So unfortunately, we're going to have more and more pandemics and infections of a global nature. So I think it's imperative that we try and look at a new paradigm of health rather than just a short-term fixed paradigm. So here is COVID, and I think this is in some interesting pictures. So really, let's see what we can do. There is no doubt that actually most authorities who work in the healthcare, especially in the States and Europe and England, and people who are aware globally, there is a health crisis for last 20, 30 years, especially in so-called the developed countries or the industrialized countries. And really, most of this crisis centers around what they call non-communicable diseases. Essentially, these are diseases of lifestyle called chronic diseases. Number one is the cardiovascular diseases, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, and obesity. So these four diseases take up much of the budget and the time of healthcare professionals. And here is a quick look really at what are the true numbers in terms of 10 global causes of death in 2016. But we just looked at the four main ones. What's very sad really, that as so-called third world countries or emerging economies or developing countries, as they change and become more industrialized, they also seem to, or their population also seems to acquire these chronic lifestyle diseases as they move into what is called Western lifestyle or living. So again, I'm not sure whether those countries will be able to have the resources and money to deal with such a burden of disease and finances. Here in England, for us really, National Health Service was founded as the first national health service in the world free at the point of delivery. So, you know, Britain is very proud of National Health Service. Indeed, we are. But let's look at how we're coping with, before COVID, just briefly, with the healthcare. This is actually a picture of a hospital in the Midlands where shortage of beds in the emergency care was such that people had to be put on trolleys in the waiting areas. And this is Britain a few years before COVID. Again, just to look at the money side, in 2015-16, 140 billion was spent on healthcare across the UK, all the nations in UK. And this was more than 10 times the figure that was spent 60 years. And this took into consideration the inflation. Again, here is another way of showing how the healthcare budget really continues to expand, and yet diseases also continue to expand. Ill health and morbidity continues to expand. Okay, so what we want to do really is that, as I said, unfortunately, this COVID-19 is the tip of the iceberg unless we change our paradigm and take greater responsibility and look at other ways of keeping healthy. The situation is unlikely to improve. So let's start with some wisdom from the Unani medicine, from Ayurvedic tradition, from Chinese tradition. As I said, many of them share common ideas. So let's look at some of these. Now, again, the Chinese have this concept that yin and yang are the two principles in nature, and the four seasons are the beginning and the end of everything, and they are also the cause of life and death. Those who disobey the laws of the universe give rise to calamities and visitations, while those who follow the laws of the universe remain free from dangerous illnesses. So obviously there was thousands of years clear relationship and understanding between how we address, how we work through nature, seasons, and how we live. For my listeners in Urdu, I'm just going to come back to yourselves after the next slide. Again, Hippocrates has similar idea about understanding the impact of seasons, a year, we really, our relationship with the seasons. Now, हम लोग जो हैं आज इंशाल्लाह बात करेंगे कि हमारा जो तर्ज ज़िंदगी है उसका सेहत और बीमारी के साथ क्या ताल्लुक़ है। तो मैं अभी गुजारिश कर रहा था कि जिस दौर में हम लोग जी रहे हैं, ज़िंदा हैं, इसको पोस्ट इंडस्ट्रियल या पोस्ट मॉडर्न एज कहते हैं, यानी ये ज़माना जो है हाई टेक्नोलॉजी का है, और इसका नतीजा आपने स्लाइड्स में देखा कि जदीद तर्ज ज़िंदगी जो है एक लिहाज से जो इंसान के लिए ये वबा की और वबाल की सूरत बन गई है। तो मैंने ये भी गुजारिश की कि बरतानिया में सबसे पहले जो मुफ्त इलाज का निज़ाम शुरू हुआ वो आज तकरीबन 72 साल पहले की बात है, और हर साल ये मज़ीद से मज़ीद पैसे ख़र्च किए जाते हैं। यहाँ पे इलाज मुफ्त है, कोई भी यहाँ का मकामी फ़र्द हो। मगर बात ये है कि दुनिया में भी आज 4 अमराज़ ऐसे हैं कि जिसे पुराने मर्ज़ या अमराज़ मज़मन कहते हैं, यानी दिल के अमराज़, फेफड़ों के अमराज़, शुगर और मोटापा। तो तकरीबन सारा बजट जो है इन बीमारियों के ऊपर ख़र्च हो जाता है। तो जब तक हम ये ज़िम्मेदारी ख़ुद नहीं लेंगे और अपनी फ़िक्र को बदल कर ये नहीं देखेंगे कि हम अपने आप को किस तरह कुदरती तर्ज ज़िंदगी पे लाएँ, तो ये अमराज तो बढ़ते रहेंगे। और ये कोविड-19 जो है हकीकत में ये एक अलामत है जो हमारा तर्ज ज़िंदगी गैर फितरती हो गया है। और आपने सुना होगा, पढ़ा होगा कि जो लोग मर रहे हैं अक्सर वो मर रहे हैं जो कि पहले से किसी न किसी बीमारी के मरीज़ हैं, यानी इन 4 में से ख़ासकर कोई एक आधा। तो देखिए आगे चलते हैं, देखते हैं कि हम पुरानी तिब्बों से क्या फितरती यानी रहनुमाई हासिल कर सकते हैं, ताकि हम अपनी सेहत का और अपने ख़ानदान की सेहत को बेहतर कर सकें और अमराज से अपने आप को बचा सकें इंशाअल्लाह। तो ये इल्म जो है कि इंसान का ताल्लुक़ उसके माहौल से, उसके तर्ज़ ज़िंदगी से है, और उसकी सेहत और बीमारी का आपस में गहरा रब्त है। तो ये रवायती कदीम चाइना की तिब भी ये कहती है, और ये बुकरात जो हैं इन्हें भी ये बातें मालूम थी। तो हम चलते हैं, देखते हैं कि किस तरह से इसको हम अपनी ज़िंदगियों में नाफिज कर सकते हैं। इब्न सीना ने एक तस्वर दिया है कि यानी लाइफ इज सस्टेन्ड बाय हीट एंड ग्रोज बाय मॉइस्चर, हीट इज सपोर्टेड बाय मॉइस्चर एंड फीड्स ऑन इट। So before we move on to the application of lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, natural lifestyle, there are a few concepts that we need to share together. So we'll be talking about heat and moisture. So let's look at those a little more. Really, we call them the 3 treasures. Each human being is born with these God-gifted 3 treasures. We are here talking about in terms of the treasures of innate heat, radical moisture और vitality. तो अल्लाह करीम हर इंसान को जो दुनिया में पैदा होता है, तो उन्हें हम इस गुफ्तगू में इन 3 ख़जानों की बात करेंगे, जो कि एक असली रतूबत, असली गर्मी और ताकत जो है, ये अल्लाह ताला हर एक फ़र्द को देता है। और फितरती तर्ज़ ज़िंदगी वो है कि जिसके मुताबिक हम इन तीनों की देखभाल कर सकें। So here is a way of actually looking at this concept. So innate heat, radical moisture, you can see from childhood or during childhood, we have abundance of both of these. And then in youth, it's kind of fully flowing, and, you know, we live and you can see the demonstration of that. And then in middle age, it gets a little less. And then as we come to old age, you can see that really the innate heat and the radical moisture gets less because of living and time, but also depends on how we live this lifestyle. So there are essentially 6 pathways to maintaining health and well-being. And actually also, if we manage these 6 lifestyle factors, then we will be able to improve our health and well-being. So let's look at those. Again, this other concept is the balance in creation and in ourselves. Everything is in balance. And when the balance is upset, then really that's where disease and problems begin to happen. So these 6 pathways are what we call lifestyle factors. If these are understood and managed well, then we have balance and we maintain those 3 treasures. And if these 6 lifestyle factors are not understood or mismanaged, then really the 3 treasures kind of deplete very quickly, and disease and illness comes to us, unfortunately, much sooner than it needs to. So the idea is that really we should develop moderate and balanced implementation of these 6 lifestyles factors. And we're going to look at each one briefly to see how we can do a few little things which will improve our balance and maintain our 3 treasures. तो ये जो तर्ज ज़िंदगी है, फितरती तर्ज ज़िंदगी है, इसमें 6 असबाब हैं, और ये तर्ज ज़िंदगी के जो 6 असबाब हैं, असबाब सित्ता ज़रूरिया भी इसे कहते हैं। अगर एक फ़र्द इनको समझकर कानून फितरत के मुताबिक और अपने मिजाज के मुताबिक और इनको नाफिज करे, तो अमूमन इंसान जो है वो सेहतमंद रहता है। अगर एक या एक से ज़्यादा ये जो फैक्टर्स हैं, इनको अगर ना समझे या इनकी खिलाफ वर्जी करे, तो बीमारी जो है उसके आने का इम्कान है। तो ये हैं asbab sitta zaruriya. These are the 6 pathways of prevention, health and well-being really. So let's look at each one of those and see how we can move forward with improving the management of each one of those. So air and environment, really this is something very big. Obviously, this is a short webinar, so we're only going to touch upon it. So the first thing is really how many of us get plenty of fresh, clean air and avoid stale and stagnated air, especially in cold climates like UK. Again, a simple tip would be that we use warm water with a little Himalayan salt to gargle twice a day. You can see that really without going into the details of how this particular virus or the various strains of the COVID-19 virus gets into the inside the human being, but obviously nose is one area and the throat is another area. So taking care of the throat, eye in terms of regular gargle with warm water will help. Again, an external use of what is called bakhur to daily cleanse the home, office, air. You can use some antiviral and antibacterial oils such as frankincense or black seed or myrrh, or really some people use what they call diffusion of essential oils. Again, you can use the same herbs and their essential oils which are easily available, and this will make a huge difference really to the air and the quality of air, and also change the emotional situation by using these valuable natural substances in your office or home. Again, food and drink, a huge area. तो उर्दू ख़वातीन और हज़रात के लिए ये है कि पहली बात ये है कि हवा का साफ़ होना बहुत ज़रूरी है हमारे घरों में, हमारे ऑफिसेज़ में और हमारे माहौल में। तो उसके लिए ये है कि बुखूर का एक कंसेप्ट है, वो आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। इसेंशियल ऑयल्स हैं और उसके अलावा रोज़ाना जो है नीम गर्म पानी में थोड़ा सा हिमालय नमक मिलाकर गरगरा करना भी मुफीद है। एक तो इससे सेहत होती है, दूसरा ये वबा से बचने के लिए भी मददगार है। अब दूसरा जो तर्ज़ ज़िंदगी का पहलू है वो है फूड एंड ड्रिंक यानी ग़िज़ा। तो उसमें भी हमारे अख्तियार में बहुत कुछ है कि जिसके ज़रिए हम अपनी ज़िंदगी को फितरती तर्ज पर ला सकें। So again, meals, here you can see a few tips here. And again, you can see that what a difference you can make really by adopting one or more of these in terms of eating and drinking. Some more here. Now, this is another area, physical activity and rest. Again, 20 minutes of walk, if possible, outside in nature does wonders. If not, then obviously at home. And again, there are various factors that you can take into account depending on your current level of health and wellness, but you can adopt this and it's again important. Again, mental activity and rest. तो वो जो गुज़श्ता स्लाइड है वो चहलकदमी और वर्जिश के बारे में थी और ये ज़हनी सुकून के बारे में है. So again, in these particular times, people really are emotionally and mentally very disturbed, all sorts of problems happening. So it's very important to keep the mental, emotional side balanced and therefore try to minimize destructive and obsessive reading and listening and news because they really all promote fear and panic and anxiety. Again, another area really is that again people need to have a regular routine for elimination of the matters that need to be like leaving the body. Again, this can be out of balance and it has an impact on health and well-being. Again, this is another huge area really. In our work here, we find a lot of people have issues of sleep. Most people really find it difficult to sleep. Again, in these times, it's even harder for people. So these are the few of the tips really that will help you. And I have another slide on sleep hygiene. Look at this. This will really help those of you who are struggling with sleep. So I'll leave the slide there for you for a few seconds so you can absorb the information. Really, sometimes all one needs is a one or two tips that can help you to really go to sleep early and get up early and have a more balance and energy in your life. And if you think about it, most of us spend actually 1/3 of our life in sleep. So it's a very important area to manage and regulate. नींद जो है उसकी भी सेहत के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है और अक्सर इंसान आज का जो दौर जदीद का तर्ज ज़िंदगी और माहौल है और हालात है उसमें सोना जो है वो कई लोगों के लिए एक मसला है. Again, we want to just touch again on the personal hygiene side. Really, it's important to follow the good practices. And here's just another reminder for yourselves again and for myself. Now, before we take the questions, really, there was one area which I wanted to give you a little more information on, and that's on what we call the mizaj, temperament, or the individuality, and we're getting a lot of questions about that. So again, this is just a brief introduction. So let's see, really, again, the key to understanding, as I said earlier, the concept of three treasures, the key to understanding the mizaj is to just understand the four seasons. Now, this is a qualitative understanding. So really it begins by just understanding what is the nature of summer, winter, autumn, and spring. And if you begin to get in touch with the seasons, you'll begin to understand mizaj through understanding the fitra. And each of us live through the four seasons. So, we understand what each season is and its normal patterns and its abnormal pattern at the beginning, middle, and end. Mizaj is very much like trying to understand the season. Once you're in touch with the seasons, really you'll begin to become in touch with your own individuality as a mizaj. Again, this will help you just to see the relationship between what is called the elements, the qualities, the seasons, and your individual temperament. And again, this is another way to help you to see that each season has qualities. So each person has a range of qualities. तो अभी हम ये कह रहे थे कि मिजाज जो है उसकी अहमियत बहुत ज़रूरी है, बहुत ज़्यादा है, इसलिए कि मिजाज जो है सीजन्स की तरह है. जैसे 4 सीजन्स हैं कायनात में, इस दुनिया में, इसी तरह बुनियादी तौर पे जो मेन मिजाज हैं वो 4 हैं. गोचे उसकी फिर सब कैटेगरीज हैं. तो जिन लोगों को मिजाज को समझना है वो सीजन्स को समझने की कोशिश करें कि जैसे गर्मी, ख़िज़ा, सर्दी और बाहर का मौसम आता है, इसी तरह उसकी अपनी कुछ कैफियत हैं, उसका अपना उनके अपने मिजाज हैं. और जब मौसम एतदाल में होता है तो क्या हालात होते हैं, और जब बेअतदाली हो जाती है मौसम में तो क्या हालात होते हैं. तो इसको समझने से इंसान अपने आप का मिजाज भी समझ सकता है, आसानी हो जाती है. और again, this is another way to show that you really, each person is unique as an individual. And yes, first we need to identify the broad category of that individual, what kind of mizaj they are, like what is the season. But then as we go into the mizaj, really the idea is very simple, but it's very profound. So I think some of you are struggling with maybe the layers and layers of your own mizaj, and you're asking questions about that. So obviously it takes time, but the key is, like everything else, to reconnect with the season, reconnect with the fitra. So I think I've really almost come to the end, if not to the end. So I think we're ready to take some questions. As I said, we're going to offer more time for the questions. So really it's 2:30. So we have almost half an hour to look at the questions and see if we can help to answer as many as possible.
Okay, Jazakallah, thank you so much, Hakim Saab. Okay, so questions are going to be in the chat box, and so I'm just going to go ahead and activate the chat box, and you can start posting your questions. I see a couple of people with your hands raised. If at all possible, it would be better to put your question in the chat box. If you can do that, it's just that there's hundreds of people in the room and there's no way that I'm going to be able to navigate my way. So I'm ever so sorry about that. Okay, so we'll give people a minute or two. Inshallah, you can start posting your questions. Like I said, I've said in the past sessions, we will try to get through as many as we can. And today, in fact, as Hakim Salim mentioned, we do have some extra time for the questions. So, okay. Those of you who are watching on Facebook as well, feel free to post any questions you have. Let's make a start. So, question from Healing with Maddie. She's asking, what is the effectiveness of rock salt?
Okay. The effectiveness of rock salt. By rock salt, I assume we're talking about Himalayan mineral salt. Himalayan mineral salt really is, again, a very precious resource. And according to traditional knowledge, really it's one of the best salt to use for many reasons. One, it's very pure in its nature, it's natural, but also it's very rich in, according to some authorities, over 84 minerals and others 94 minerals. So it really has minerals that are bioavailable for human body, and they're very economical. And also Himalayan salt also has a high energy. Now, this is something which actually what we call modern or technical medicine understands very little of, is that substances not only have the chemistry, but there is also the energetic patterns of each substance and each thought and each person. And intelligence at one level is before the energetics. So if the energetics of a substance are balanced and fine, then there is a greater energy and intelligence in that. So really we need to get away from this human body or human being as a machine to human being as an organic whole, which is reflection of the macrocosm, i.e. there is an in-depth relationship between the human being, their body and their needs, and what is in nature, what's in fitra. So in terms of the rock salt, if we're talking about the Himalayan salt, then really it's a great resource for health building, for well-being. Um, and in terms of what I mentioned about using warm water and a pinch of Himalayan salt, really, it has many antiseptic benefits as well as others. So I hope that helps to answer the question.
Thank you, Hakim Saab. Couple of questions from Facebook. I thought we'd take a couple of them first before we come back to the Zoom questions. So Zara Sheikh is asking, Assalamu alaikum, can Hakim Saab please explain whether it is best just to eat how the season's intended rather than eating anything any time of the year?
Yes, mashallah, again, a great question, really. So again, let's just go back really and ask ourselves that, in earlier times when humanity lived a much more sustainable, connected, and natural lifestyles, then they knew what fruits and vegetables were in season, especially in their particular locality or country or region, and they lived according to the seasons. Now, for many of us today, we really have lost touch with the seasons, never mind what grows in the season. And because of various commercial interest, many of us shop in places where there's food and fruits and vegetables and other things available throughout the year. And as a result, people have lost touch with what is in season and how to actually eat in season and how to eat locally. So again, if we want to go back to reconnecting with ourselves, with nature, our locality, the region we're from, then really the first step is to begin to understand what are the fruits and vegetables and other products that grow in a particular season, and how can we get in touch with those, and how can we eat and drink those things. And really, this is one very simple and a great way of returning back to nature and returning back to balance. And the local things are usually much better. Let me give you an example. In UK, usually around end of February, March, April, there is a big rise in what is known as allergies, but especially hay fever. Now, many people really, their lives are difficult for that period. So one of the very simple things that people can do is really to get hold of, excuse me, local, natural, unpurified honey, and use those, and it really works wonders for most people. So this is something, and especially again for those of you who might be susceptible to hay fever and its associated symptoms, then really local honey. Again, this shows the flora and the connection and the wisdom in local and seasonal things. Again, I hope that helps, inshallah.
Thank you, Hakim Saab. Second question from Facebook, from Palesa. She's asking, he or she, I'm not sure actually, they're asking, when the weather is dry and hot, what remedies are good for sinuses?
So when the weather is dry and hot, what remedies are good for the sinuses? Really, then it's opposite. So we have an usul, we have a principle, we have a way of navigating through confusion and difficulties. So if the season is hot and dry, then really the balance is to bring things which are cool and moist in our eating and drinking, and to use things which are cooling and moist to bring back the balance. So really that's the principle in most conditions, if not all of them. So again, I think last week we shared a download which gives you 2 sheets of guidance on the foods and drink and their temperament, their mizaj. So if the questioner can go and get those, or if you haven't got them, you can ask for it. These are free downloads. So really, you'll be able to find, for example, as an example, cucumbers would be the ones rather than ginger. So that's the way to balance the person.
Thank you, Hakim Salim. So let's come back to the Zoom questions. There's actually a couple of good questions here, so I'll read out, 2 or 3. One person is asking, how many hours of sleep is ideal? Another person is asking about steam inhalation. And then there's another question about temperament. So it's Aisha. She asks, what are you referring to when you say a person's temperament? How do we figure this out?
Okay, so let's take one at a time. So sleep really, as I said in earlier, that most of us sleep 1/3 of our life. The general rule really is that we need at least 6 to 8 hours of good quality sleep. So depending on the person's location, work, lifestyle, individuality, they will need on average about 8 hours. So really that's the general rule or guideline. And again, it will depend on where the person is. For example, if you live in a village where there's very little light pollution and traffic noise, then you're going to manage with 6 hours sleep. The air is better. Whereas if you live in a city and maybe on a main road where there's street lights and there's light pollution and noise, noise during the sleep, not only it lowers the quality of the sleep, but actually the person needs more vitamins and mineral and needs more detox, because all these things have a positive or negative effect on the sleeper. So I would say about 8 hours sleep really. The more office-based work the individual does or intellectual work, then you're going to need more sleep than the average person. Now, the next question was steam inhalation. I mean, steam inhalation is very useful, and particularly in the context of this pandemic, there's been a lot of research and good information to say that really steam inhalation helps to, mitigate some of the symptoms. So I think it's a great and a very easy idea. And again, in steam inhalation, individuals, if it's appropriate, they can use some appropriate essential oils, which will make it even more better. Now, in terms of coming to the temperament question, really the temperament question is something which will come again and again. We have some resources through our college, and individuals can look into those. We also have graduates of our college who are actually in practice in UK, a number of them, and you can go to the Guild of Unani Medicine and get their details. We also have people in USA who you can go to. Let me just say that today the download will actually have a resource pack which we put together for you, and it will have information about the resources, but also the individuals. And frankly speaking, temperament is such a thing that you will need to go and see a qualified and experienced person who can help you with that. Or maybe you can do an online course. Again, our college does some online courses where you can get some help. And there are, some books and articles. But really, eventually, you're going to need like a educator and a teacher or a helper and a therapist to help to work with you, to help you to identify your individuality, your temperament, and its details. So, again, I'm sorry, but this is something like it's like having a recipe. Someone can give you a recipe how to cook, let's say, you know, soup A or biryani or whatever it is. But you really need somebody who has cooked that dish over many times, and then you do a little mentorship with them. They show you, identify the ingredients, show you how to chop it, cut it, and then make it in front of you, and then you make it few times, and then you get the idea. So really understanding the individuality or the temperament of the person, in some cases very easy, but in other cases it's difficult. And again, I would say to you, start studying the seasons, because once summer, for example, is right at its zenith, when it's the highest, then you're not in any doubt about the nature of summer. For example, if you're in the Middle East or parts of Pakistan or wherever, or parts of the United States which are hot, then really you know that it's summer and it's really hot. Similarly, in terms of cold, you know when it's winter, and snow and all the things. So temperament is a bit like that, really. But other times, if you're in temperate zones, you're not sure. That's again how it is. Okay.
Joachim, so, there's a question about the psychological side. Tahia is asking, Jazakallah for all the useful information. How do we help panic attacks? And I'm not sure if this is referring to in general or specifically to COVID.
I mean, again, panic attacks can mean so many things. So we really don't know whether it is an individual person who needs attention from an experienced therapist or a practitioner or healthcare professional, or whether really it's a situational panic attacks, or whether there are some other psychological or environmental reasons. So I think really the few simple things I can suggest would be, to take deep breaths. So, focus on deep breathing, remove oneself if possible from the triggers, which could be chemical or situations or people, and really long term, see if you can find someone who's appropriate to help you to deal with that, because one doesn't know whether it is a physiological issue or psychological or a spiritual or a combination or a relationship issue or an environmental issue. So really, although it sounds very simple, but in reality, it could be a combination of various factors or causes.
Thank you. We're getting to some of the hot topics now, Hakim Saab.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll 2 or 3 questions. So Hussein Kolwadia is asking about the vaccines, and I know that some other people have been asking about that as well. We've got Maysara asking about intermittent fasting. What are your thoughts? Yeah, so maybe we can deal with those 2 and then move on.
Okay, so I'll deal with the easiest one first, which is the second one, intermittent fasting. I mean, fasting, especially intermittent fasting, is a great way and a very safe way to actually detox and to purify and to manage one's self and grow the health. So, intermittent fasting there's a lot of research, and Americans and Europeans are very much promoting that. But as a Muslim, alhamdulillah, if I go back to the final prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and their blessed lifestyle, really they used to do intermittent fasting as well as the fasting of Ramadan. So really, in all other scriptures as well before them, fasting was both a spiritual exercise, but also a great health builder, really. So one cannot talk enough about intermittent fasting. Coming back to the question, hot topic. I'm not sure whether it's a hot topic, Hussein, or whether it's a cold topic. But look, for those of you who've been asking this question, first of all, I am not qualified to answer this question. I have no experience or knowledge or interest or inclination or desire about vaccinations in general and about the COVID-19 vaccination. So I am not the person who needs to answer questions about vaccinations. For those of you who wish to, you need to go to the people, the authorities, the sources which you trust to help you and guide you. The only thing I can say to you as a physician of complementary and alternative medicine and as a tabib, really, that in all traditions of health and medicine, whether they're Chinese, Ayurveda, Unani, Tib Nabwi, or so-called modern medicine, it is based on some ethics, which is that the practitioner of that tradition or system has a one-to-one relationship with the person and the patient. And that certified, experienced, qualified healthcare professional actually makes an assessment of the individual patient in their care and then prepares and guides them appropriately to administer whatever is appropriate for their need. So, as a healthcare professional, my job is to look at each person in their individuality and their circumstances according to my knowledge and expertise, and then to guide them appropriately or to make a referral. Now, I fail to understand how can health and medicine be practiced whilst not addressing these basic ethical parameters. And again, in all medical intervention, whatever they are, is about informed choice by the client or the patient in those circumstances. So really, we have to contextualize ourselves and our lives and our needs and go back to ethical basis that each healthcare professional takes care of each human being as their patient according to the best of their knowledge and skills, and then provides an individual prescription. There is no such thing as collective medical practice. Actually, the insurances are such that there is a relationship between the individual practitioner and the individual patient. So I hope I've made myself very clear, really, that I am no expert. I have no understanding about vaccinations in general and COVID-19 vaccinations in particular. So I am not the person who needs to give you guidance on that. You need to go back to your own healthcare professionals and those who know about this and really make your informed choice and consent based on that. So inshallah, I hope that covers future questions about vaccinations also.
Thank you, Hakim Salim. Foyz Malik is asking, so there's actually a couple of questions about the herbs which we've mentioned previously. One person is asking about the black seeds, key aspects of black seed use on one's health. Another person is asking correct way of making olive leaf tea. There are many recipes on the internet. I do believe we gave in the handouts, there should be some clear information. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Far as the black seed is concerned, really, there is so much guidance and information on the benefits and uses of black seed. And I think in the first presentation, we actually provided you with slides. For those of you who haven't, you can ask again and you can get it. Regards really making the olive leaf tea, the simplest and the easiest way is to simmer the leaves for 3 to 5 minutes and then use it as a decoction, as they call it, as a light joshanda. So that's the best way of using the olive leaf tea.
Thank you, Hakim Salim. We've got about 6 minutes, so we can get through maybe a few more questions. So Yusuf is asking, what is your opinion on the use of modern infrared saunas to increase immunity?
Okay, mashallah, good question again. I have no experience on that matter. I'm ever so sorry.
Yeah, someone's asking, I missed part 1 and part 2. Is there any way? Yes, you'll get the email after this session. You'll get the emails to all the recordings and you'll get the handouts. So just to make that clear for everyone who's asking, the oils for inhalation, somebody's asking. Okay, so someone's asking what oils should we use? Again, we've given some examples in this presentation. You'll get the slides. Actually, we didn't say that for inhalation specifically, did we? We said diffusing essential oils. This person is asking what oils should we use when it comes to inhalation?
I assume, my assumption is that if people are inhaling, then they would use it through the diffuser. But again, there are many oils for inhalation as well, but it depends on, what they want to achieve with that. The few which we mentioned would be appropriate in the slides to try them out. And again, one needs to understand that essential oils are very, very useful. But really, you should begin by using one oil at a time and in very small quantities, because these are very powerful natural substances and solutions for both prevention and management of all sorts of infections and emotional problems. So really, I encourage you to use them and buy good quality essential oils, but use them slowly and steady so you don't have any negative reactions, because they are very potent.
Thank you, Hakim Saab. Peter is asking, he had a bad connection and he missed something. Obviously, like I said, we will be sharing the recordings. So for those of you who missed anything, you can feel free to watch that. In our guidance about food and drink, we said that resting after lunch and a walk after dinner are very helpful. Ashraf is asking, why is it not advised to walk after lunch? I think he's made an assumption because we didn't actually say that, but you can go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, we didn't say you can't walk after lunch. If you wish, you can walk after lunch. But it is said in earlier wisdom-based literature that it is better to have a little rest after lunch. And that really ties in with the concept of siesta in modern days. And it ties in with Kailula, one of the blessed practices of the Prophet ﷺ and their blessed companions. And really, again, if you look at, not that we base prophetic knowledge on the research, astaghfirullah, but, we live in this postmodern society. So sometimes people need a little anchor to increase their belief and their yaqeen and their iman. So again, if you look at the research and benefits, health benefits of siesta, they're phenomenal. And because places like Spain has this practice, and some of the other Mediterranean countries and places like Pakistan and South Asian countries have these practices, if you actually look at the health benefits of siesta, you'll be amazed. And siesta normally happens around lunchtime, but if the person wishes to walk after lunch, that's fine.
Jazakallah. Thank you, Hakim Saab. Are we good for one more question?
That's it. One more question, and then inshallah we'll wind down.
Okay. Okay, so before that, I'd just like to address, some people are asking about temperaments and dynamics, any recommendations for books. So we will give you that information in a resources sheet, which we will be sending to you. The first step, someone's asking first steps in connecting with the seasons. So, we'll send you that information where you can do some further reading. There's one clarification question from Mona Hassan, who's asking, Assalamu alaikum. So when temperament and age interact with each other, for example, if somebody's choleric and then they become elderly, should they primarily focus on their choleric general temperament, or should they focus more on their cold temperament as an elderly person?
Obviously, again, we individualize. Sorry, Dr. Mona. Thank you for your question. MashaAllah. But, it will depend on the person and how much what is the age and what are their strength and weaknesses, really. So they would need to build the weak sides of their bodies, or the area of their life, or the temperament. So again, it is very individual situation. But they really need to go back to conserving the three treasures, and that will balance them, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Hakim Saab. It was, again, a very enlightening session that we had today. And I'm sure that the audience have benefited from this, as I have. In particular, what I realized is also the simplicity of it. Things like simply going to sleep on time, taking enough rest, getting fresh air, the basic things which, frankly speaking, don't even cost a lot of money or have a lot of effort. So I'm really happy that, we can go back to basics, back to nature, and hopefully benefit improving the quality of our lives. At the end, I want to thank all of the audience for their participation. Very special thanks, of course, to Hakim Salim for sharing his knowledge, wisdom, and experience. And also a special thanks to Hussein and the team at the National Incubation Center, Abid, Numair, and the team for supporting us today. I look forward to welcoming everybody again to the fourth and last session next week. And in the meantime, I wish you all health and safe week. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.